It's me, Colin Dansipa. I'm not at the CUTV studios. As you'll see behind me is not the regular wall. In fact, there's a window here now. I'm inside the John Molson building. What are you doing there, you might be asking? Well, I'm here at the Housing Justice Convergence. This is a weekend event organized by Seas, as well as just a absolute gigantic slew of community partners and contributors. This is an event about the housing crisis. And it's not just about calling it a crisis and the different ways that it's bad, but they have organized this for solutions. So many people are here sharing their perspectives, their takes on the housing crisis, on solutions to it. We have some very bold policy propositions. It's quite an exciting weekend. I've been here. This is my second day here now. There's quite there's a thick buzz in the air, and I got the chance to speak to some of the organizers and some participants as well about this housing convergence. You're about to listen to some interviews with them. Hope you enjoy them. Thanks. Oh, wow. We're recording.
We're recording.
Well. I didn't even realize. I was so lost in this pamphlet for this event. I'm here at the Housing Justice Convergence. It is March 8th, 2025. There is over 200 participants. This place is packed, sold out. There's over 60 panelists. It's a busy weekend of sharing information between tenants, organizers. There's also unions here. There are researchers, tons of people. And then also, of course, people who are concerned about the housing crisis here in Montreal. And actually, outside of Montreal as well. We have a ton of people who are visiting from Toronto, New York City even, to people coming in from Victoria. It's a big, I mean, I guess convergence is like the perfect word for it. And you might be wondering who's sitting to my right. This is Lena. Lena runs Tenants' Rights QC and has agreed to a little interview. How are you doing, Lena?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing also great. Lena, can you tell me a bit about what is Tenants' Rights QC?
So it's a page I run where I try and take information about tenants' rights and the rights that we have as Quebecers and condense them into short form videos that are very digestible, accessible, and clear. Because when you go to the TAL website, sometimes those web pages can be real long, real intimidating, and not always all that helpful.
Of course, yeah, they make it very, I find sometimes verbose, hard to get to. So it's great that you're kind of creating this kind of resource for people online to know what their rights are. I'm curious, what prompted it? What made you want to start Tenants' Rights QC?
Well, I think it was in 2021 that Bill 31 was introduced, which was a threat to our lease transfers.
Could you explain the Bill 31 for people who might not be familiar real quick?
Sure. So lease transfers, for those who don't know, is basically when you move out, you can pass on your lease like by finding a new tenant, and that kind of keeps the lease as it was at the same price with the same conditions. And it was a tool for rent control, which we need in our cities and isn't that powerful. So what Bill 31 proposed was to allow landlords to refuse lease transfers for any reason whatsoever. Prior to Bill 31, it was only for serious reasons like inability to pay the rent or past problematic behavior, but now they can just say no. And that opens the door to a lot of shady behavior or shady actions, including bumping up the rent price as they like. Of course, they're not allowed to, but no one is stopping them.
So before, if you transferred your lease, I guess the rent couldn't increase as much. But then if it's if it's on a completely new lease, the landlords can raise it as much as they'd like. Is that it?
Yeah. The idea is like, I literally give you this piece of paper
Right.
and my apartment with it.
Thank
Please
you.
take it.
Wow, that's cheap rent.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So with lease transfers gone, I guess, what was your thought? What made you actually like create it, right? So you have this kind of issue of lease transfers kind of going away, there being more power to landlords, less to tenants, and tell me a bit about your mindset, I guess, at the time.
Honestly, I was kind of in disbelief.
Mhm.
I couldn't believe that it was being proposed. I couldn't believe that it could be accepted, and I couldn't believe that we weren't all enraged about it.
Mhm.
And my background is I'm a photographer, videographer, so I had the skills to make videos and lighting and all that. So I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to make a video and talk about Bill 31 and why we need to talk about it and why we need to stand up for it. And so that's kind of where it started. And since then, I've just, Bill 31 was passed in the end, so lease transfers are a lot harder to do now. Not impossible, might I add. But yeah, so from there, I just kind of recognized kind of the need for these types of videos to just, in Quebec, we have a lot of rights still as tenants compared to a lot of the world, compared to a lot of Canada. So I thought I think a lot of people just didn't know that lease transfers were a thing. Because if more people knew about it, I think more people would have spoken out and recognized what a loss we were facing.
Right.
So the idea now for me is kind of just, of course, to inform people of their general rights and how things work in as clear a way as possible, but also to have everyone informed so that if ever our rights are threatened again, there's more of us aware of them and more of us ready to mobilize and say, hey, no, please don't take that away. We need this.
Right.
And,
I know about this. This is my right, and I demand it be protected.
Exactly.
Of course. I'm curious. What are you working on nowadays? What are you trying to inform people about?
Well, I just got my rent increase. It's that time of year, and my landlord sent me one of 11.7%. Oh boy, he doesn't know who he's dealing with, but
Have you sent him your videos?
no, I'm hoping he doesn't know they exist. I mean, I signed the terms and conditions when I started the page, but no, I don't have any indication that he knows what I do on the side.
I don't know. Maybe that's why he raised your rent so much.
Whatever he's
putting
trying,
you to the test.
Whatever he's trying, I'm fighting back. But even in my position where I know my rights, I know what resources to reach out to, it's still stressful.
Of course.
And just recognizing that I'm in a position where I can fight back, but not everyone else is.
It's true. Yeah.
There's single mothers who will open the door to a rent increase and just go, oh, okay, I don't have time to deal with this, or people who have reduced mobility or, for whatever reason. It's just, there are a lot of laws in Quebec, but there's not enough enforcement of those laws. No repercussions when landlords don't follow them.
That does seem to be the trend in the area of, I guess, property and landlord. It's from what I've seen so far, it just definitely seems like it's sort of like a Wild West where you have some laws, but then the enforcement on it is so low. I mean, sometimes you see, I know during the last municipal elections, there was talk of having sort of licenses for landlords that could potentially be revoked if things weren't being done properly, but it didn't really fall through. And I don't know, it's clear that these problems kind of continue unresolved.
It's an interesting concept. And I think the other thing to point out is that it falls on the tenant's shoulders to kind of police their landlord or keep them in check, and that also works against the tenant because the landlord can take it personally.
Of course, yeah. The landlord has power over the tenant, so it's the way the cookie's going to crumble is going to be in the landlord's favor because of that power dynamic. What are some challenges running tenants' rights QC? What are some obstacles you run into?
Well, it's a passion project, so I'm not making money unless I'm collaborating occasionally with housing committees, which has been lovely, but it really comes from the heart, and I kind of do it all myself. From time to time, I get some friends to review or look at my first draft, but I'm writing the scripts, I'm filming, and so the biggest challenge is kind of, well, public speaking.
Of course. You're doing great so far.
I mean, I'm used to being behind the camera, but it has to be. Yeah, hello. But yeah, I just felt that there was a need for this, and I know I'm not the only one doing it, and I'm really happy about that. So the challenge really is just like finding the time to do it. Like I said, it's a passion project, but when I have a rent increase, I'm balancing an event I'm going to on the weekend, and it's just about, and also just learning how to be in front of the camera and keep things short and concise and valuable.
Of course,
well.
yeah. You don't want to cut the important stuff out.
Yeah, and I don't want to babble.
Of course.
Ideally.
Meanwhile, me on this show, I love babbling.
Nothing wrong with that.
Is there any videos in the works right now?
Yeah, once I have a little more time. I mean, depending how this goes with the rent increase, if I end up at the TAL, which is looking very possible right now. Of course, I'd rather not, but if I do, I mean, I'm going to share that whole process. I mean, as someone, my mom, who lives in an apartment, she would fight with her landlord as I was growing up. So I've been to the TAL as a child, but I don't remember anything.
Okay, it's interesting that you have that kind of
I have a strong
familiarity.
parent figure who fought with her landlord, which probably
a family business.
Her unit in the 60-unit building she's in is probably the cheapest. She's been there over 20 years. So.
There you go. Yeah. I guess that proves you have to fight for these kinds of comforts, right?
But still, it's you have to be in a position of privilege to be able to fight back.
That's true.
You know,
like you were saying before, right? If you're a single mother, if you're working a lot of jobs, perhaps your mobility is reduced, and the amount that you can actually leverage against your landlord is reduced because so much else is taking your time. Yeah,
and even if, for instance, you can afford the rent increase that's abusive because you can't afford the time, it's still, of course, it harms you, but it also harms the future tenants and and the whole city because it brings the price up. So I think, like, by knowing our rights and by fighting back as much as we're able to, we are not only helping ourselves but helping each other and our cities. It's a trickle effect.
Of course, yeah. Because once they go up, it's much harder to get them back down. I'm curious, what's the reception to Tenants' Rights QC been like? Do you feel like you're helping? Has anyone reached out and thanked you for the work you're doing?
The reception has been really good. I'm surprised because I mean I'm like I said, doing this myself, and I've just been able to network with a lot of people. People have reached out. Like I said, I've done collaborations with the Verdun Housing Committee and with Rapru. And so it's been reassuring that what I'm doing as a passion project is having an effect. I'm not saying it's the solution to everything, but I think knowledge is power at the end of the day, and that's something that I have been able to promote a little and share a little. So it's been nice to meet people. I'm a big introvert, so going to events like this and
there's 200 people here this weekend. This is a pretty big deal.
Sold out. That tells you a lot about the state of things.
Let's. How did you hear about this? What brought you here to the Housing Justice Convergence?
Well, on my page, of course, I've followed people in the housing world, and I saw the event and I saw the speakers, and I was like, wow, yes, please. And it's been so inspiring to be here. The energy in the rooms, the speakers, and just meeting all these incredible people that are, devoted to this cause. It's really empowering and inspiring.
Incredible. Anything you're looking forward to specifically at this convergence?
Everything.
Totally fair.
But I'm blanking on the name of the talk, but the one with
Ricardo
Tranjan.
Ricardo Tranjan of the Canadian Center for Policy Alternatives.
Yes.
You're reading his book?
The Tenant Class, I have it on my bedside table, which I've realized is not a productive way of reading it because it wakes me up before bed and I'm like, can't sleep now.
That's a great review for the book.
It'll keep you up, and inspired. And
Maybe you should read it in the morning instead. Get you
I'm
going.
gonna try. Yeah, I'll let you know how that goes.
Terrific. Anything you want to say to listeners, viewers who want to dip their toe into just aiding in relieving the pressures of the housing crisis?
Absolutely.
Where can people start?
It doesn't have to be big. You can just talk to your neighbors, really. Ask them what their rent increase was, compare, have a community barbecue, just really have each other's backs, make sure people know their rights, and form a community around you. It's that simple. That's the first step, to just know who your neighbors are. You don't have to love them, but you can also.
yeah, that's a nice bonus.
Yeah, you can meet some great people, and really just talk to your neighbors and be part of your community.
I think even if they annoy you, it's good to protect them. It's better for everyone in the end.
Yeah.
All right,
Just working together.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you very much, Lena from Tenants' Rights QC. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much, Calden. It's been a pleasure.
Of course. We'll be right back with more interviews. When I want chocolate, I reach for Camino chocolate. Camino, I'm doing this because they're one of the sponsors of this event. What event is that? Well, I told you before. We are currently at the Housing Justice Convergence, and I'm speaking to one of the organizers. This is Olivia, General Coordinator at SEAS, which is the main force organizing this. Although there is quite a number of what is this? Contributors and community partners. This is quite the convergence, I guess. I keep looking for a word, and I'm like, no, convergence is it. Convergence
Aptly
is
named.
Yeah. It's
We were very fortunate to have 33 community partners, and they've all contributed either to the programming, to the mobilization, to the vision, and it's really, gone beyond a conference, therefore aptly named.
Yeah, it's definitely not just a conference. Olivia, tell me a bit about what led to this. This is clearly not just something that happens overnight. There's clearly a lot of thought and planning that went into this. But how did it start?
Yeah, this started, I guess, maybe even 2 years ago, when, obviously we're in a housing crisis, and we wanted to hear, from the people actually working on the front lines of these movements. So we surveyed 60 grassroots, policy, nonprofit, tenant unions, so 60 groups across Canada, and surveyed them on their challenges, their successes, what their needs are, and all of that was synthesized and compiled into a report called Crisis to Consensus.
Crisis to Consensus.
Crisis to Consensus,
Lovely.
yes. Which is also hinting at what the results might be within that report.
Wink, wink.
Yeah, and so after that, since we started engaging with all these groups, we created a housing working group that was open to anyone who was interested. And we met about once a month for about 5 to 6 months. And that helped shape the vision and the programming behind the convergence.
Well, so 2 years leading up to this.
Yeah.
How does it feel to be in the middle of it right now, day 2?
It's exciting. It's energizing. It's been also very smooth sailing,
That's great.
Controlled chaos.
Yeah. I mean, that's what all the planning's for, right?
Yeah.
Terrific. I'm kind of curious. What do you are there any panelists that you're personally excited about getting, or any specific topics that you're happy that is being discussed as well?
Yeah, for us it was really important because there are a ton of housing conferences, but those conferences tend to be people who are in positions of power, right? They have authority, and that's why they speak authoritatively about housing policies, right. And all of that has always felt very detracted from the people who are on the front lines and often considered kind of externalities to the housing crisis. So we opened up the conference with a front lines of the housing crisis panel discussion. And I think it really set the tone for the convergence, and also it was really impactful to hear directly from the people who are on the ground working on these issues, to set the stage for what we're trying to build, where we're trying to, why are we doing this, right? Yeah.
Yeah, because otherwise it's just the policy people, the scholars who are, of course, doing important work, but maybe sometimes a little too distant from the lived realities of these crises.
Yeah, and I think we tried to build in that perspective throughout. So we also had caucuses. So there's 4 special interest caucuses where we're trying to create space for people to connect, skill share, and trying to break down the like, I have all the knowledge and I'm teaching you dynamic that often tends to happen at conferences, because we're trying to bring like all these different actors together, like street intervention workers, artists, tenant organizers, like solidarity economy builders, policy advocates, and academics. We're trying to get them all in the room to collaborate, grow, learn. So for us, it was important that we weaved throughout the principle that everyone's a teacher and everyone's a student.
That's incredible. I'm kind of wondering, what do you base this sort of convergence off of? Like, what's the inspiration?
Yeah, the inspiration was like academic conference meets anarchist book fair.
Oh, lovely.
So because we wanted to make sure that across those kind of six actors that I laid out, that there was something for everyone, and also like building in accessibility from a physical standpoint, but also from a like class standpoint. So making sure we're not building in like technological barriers or things that might alienate participants.
I guess how that manifests, what would the technological barrier look like, I guess?
Yeah, a lot of conferences will have like these like voting platforms, or it's like you scan the QR code and then you have to you'll see like a word cloud appear, things like that. And it's very fun and lovely, but that's not the kind of audience we're working with. So yeah, we made the choice decidedly to not participate in those kinds of software engagement tools.
Right. I think I just saw stickers, for voting.
Stickers, yeah. Stickers, markers, classics.
There you go. Lovely. I guess to come back to the topic, what are you hoping comes out of this, personally, I guess? Yeah,
it's been really exciting. We're hoping it's momentum building. We're hoping decentralized relationships lead to collaborations. There's a couple groups, or one group I should say, that's asked if we could host one in Vancouver next year.
Wow.
Which we're like, okay, we're still in it. One second, please. But I think this is the beginning. And the word itself, housing justice, wasn't really in the ether. People are talking about the housing crisis. And our perspective at SEAS is always there's one side and of which is what the oppression, the thing, and then there's the other side, which is the alternative, the solution, the building. So we're wanting to reframe the conversation from just focusing 100% on it's a crisis. It's
it's a crisis. Oh, how it's a crisis. It's bad.
Yeah. It's instead, there's not really anything to stand behind on that. Where you're not giving inspiration, and it just feels heavy, right? So how talking about housing justice is supposed to be trying to unite people with shared principles, and a shared vision for the future.
Incredible. This was Olivia, General Coordinator at SEAS. Thank you so much for coming on. I know you're busy.
Yeah, thank you so much, Colin, for having me.
Of course. Yeah. We'll be back with more interviews. Wow. So much going on. I'm here. I'm back. I'm still here. At the Housing Justice Convergence, it is March 8th, and I'm speaking to Malcolm.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on. Thank you for being available when I grabbed you out of the hallway.
Yeah, I was running around, and I'm
What
happy
were
to
you
sit down
carrying?
for a
What
second.
was that, some tea?
Yeah, it was hot water for tea.
Hell yeah, hell yeah. What kind of tea?
We had lots of flavors brought to you by Hive Solidarity Cafe.
Hive Solidarity Cafe. Do they have like a slogan? Should we make one up? It's the bee's knees.
Oh, that was quick.
Look at that. Look at
Yeah.
that. It's just part of the business. Malcolm, I have you on, not to talk about tea or coffee. I want to ask you about your perspective here, because you've been working on this. You work at Seas.
That's right.
As a tech coordinator?
I'm the operations coordinator there
Operations
at Seas.
coordinator.
Yeah.
So this has been, I just spoke to Olivia before, so this has been in the works for a while now. I think the impetus for this was something like 2 years ago, this kind of survey that was put out.
Yeah. Yeah, so Seas Solidarity Economy Incubation for Zero Emissions, we focus on 5 sectors. One of them is housing, because obviously housing is a thing that's in crisis in general right now, and everybody has a right to housing. And so we, our organization in general, is trying to figure out some of the bigger picture, not by ourselves, but get everyone in the same room. So we asked 60 different groups across Canada who are in some way involved in housing. Maybe it's through advocacy, maybe they're an actual land trust, or maybe they advocate for land trusts, all kinds of groups. We got 60 responses from those groups all the way across Canada about what kind of policies that they support, what policies they don't support, what kind of mobilization efforts do they do. Generally, like, what are the challenges that they're facing, and what kind of successes have they had. So we gathered all that data together, and it was really evident that we need to get everyone in the same room, that everyone is tackling this in their community of a specific facet of the housing crisis, because it's polyvalent. I mean, it's affecting so many different aspects. And that survey it was just very clear that we need to get everyone in a room and try and come to a consensus.
Right.
That's what came out of the report. So that came out June of last year. And from there, we started thinking, okay, what does this conference look like? What does it look like to get everyone in the same room? Who's invited? And I think it's pretty clear just from the turnout of like the over 200 people who have shown up, that I think we've captured a lot of people, from street intervention workers to actual land trust members, tenant organizers, things like that, because again, the housing crisis is affecting a lot of different aspects, and it's really hard for an organization to swallow the whole thing. You got to focus on a particular thing in your particular area, and the hope is by having all of those different people focusing on all their different particular facets. By having all of those people in the same space, we can see the commonality of what we're trying to do or how we can get there and come to a consensus.
Incredible. Yeah, I think one of the most incredible things about this so far that I've seen is just this plethora of different actors and organizations that are kind of course, like you're saying, right, tackling with different facets of the housing crisis, everyone getting together and trying to work towards solutions, at least building networks as well.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, is there any? I asked this of Olivia before, but are there any panelists, any topics that you're happy has made a space on the agenda this year?
I think one of the things that I was more interested in, because it's a pernicious thing that I see affecting a lot of the world, is we had a talk about big tech versus housing justice in general.
This morning, yeah.
That was just this morning. I think because in the general landscape of the housing crisis, we're talking about these big actors who have a lot more money, a lot more resources, and with just the advancements of tech and AI in general, it's happening so quickly. The people who have those kinds of resources are the quickest to be able to use it and weaponize it in ways that it's really difficult for us to understand, in terms of real estate groups being able to really kind of game the market, where they can buy it when it's low, sell it when it's high, in ways that allows them to just continue accumulate their worth, as well as just totally remove the human component of providing housing. Of course, if you can automate it more and figure out who isn't a good candidate without even ever meeting them, and just get that on wheels. AI, take care of it for us in ways that it's going to be even more dehumanizing.
I think there's also a thing of accountability there that's sort of gets pushed away because of the AI, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You can abdicate responsibility. It's we actually don't need humans anymore. This system, more or less, is aiming for success. It's trained, and success in this case is money, right? It's not providing housing. That's not the goal. The goal is
has
that's
hardly ever been the measure.
that's never it. And so, at least for me, I that was one of the talks that I felt was interesting, and something you don't think about when you think about housing, about something that it's because the divide is happening faster and faster every year. I think we saw it a lot post-COVID, the wealth consolidation that happened, how all these big actors were able to scoop up a lot more land because of the state of the market. with the advent of AI, I feel like the gap is only getting bigger and bigger, and that's why I'm seeing a lot more tenant organizing efforts across Canada. I don't know about other folks, but I'm seeing people to start to mobilize because they're pushed into this corner.
And you're starting to see some wins as well.
Yeah, absolutely seeing some wins. Yeah, there's been there's Vancouver Tenants Union here, Victoria Tenants Union. We have SLAM from Montreal. We have all these different groups who definitely have their own facets because they're made up of the people in the area. Exactly. Like, how can we engage this community? Like, what can we do to try and kind of come together, like focus our attention, and for every area that's going to be different. But then you see like, oh, they're doing something really cool over there. Oh, they're doing something really cool over there, and you can kind of like take pieces of that and hopefully bring it back.
Share tactics, right. So, Malcolm, what are you hoping people walk away from this convergence with in their minds?
I'm hoping more than anything it was energizing for the actual individual people, that they are able to see a lot of the different aspects of what housing justice looks like. But in general, one of the things that I'm hoping that we are all able to walk away with, or at least craft from having been in the same space, is a general collective statement and or policy guidelines for what housing looks like. There's a federal election coming up. And housing is obviously a major issue in Canada right now. We have all these different groups representing all different aspects of what housing justice looks like, to try and crystallize a lot of the key takeaways. Every session we had a key takeaway document where people could write down what they had. Trying to crystallize that down into like demands that we can escalate to the national level, as well as try and bring back in individual communities, is something that I really want to see happen, because we have so many people who see the housing crisis in different ways, at different sizes, from a big national organization to just like an individual for a small neighborhood, like tenant organizers, something like that. All those different people see it from different angles, and to try and walk away with like a collective, this is what we need to do, this is what we're demanding, I think that can go a long way.
Incredible. How are you feeling? Your day 2 of it so far?
Day 2, a little bit low sleep, but I'm so psyched. I mean,
I could tell.
For the longest time, this has all been imaginary. It's imaginary. Like, I see names on a spreadsheet. I see numbers. It's a concept. It's like this organization. Oh, I see their logo. It wasn't until Thursday when we did the site visit on this where I saw the 100 plus chairs in a room, like. Human physical like forms with walking bodies are going to be here. Like it was.
Wait a minute, we're serious?
Yeah. Wait, I thought, let's call the whole thing off. No. But it's been incredible, and I hope everyone's had a good time. I myself have been kind of running around, so I haven't been able to participate as many talks as I would have liked. But I'm really stoked. Really.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think? What's next for C's after this?
Well, C's, like I said, C's focuses on 5 sectors. Yeah. That's right. And so housing is a facet of it, but we have other irons in the fire right now. When it comes to housing specifically, we're definitely going to have to do a debrief and try and get down to that collective statement, and trying to make sure that this momentum is not lost, and that everyone who's in these rooms has like the ability to connect and carry it forward. That's one of our concerns. But overall, C's is working on like a number of different things. One of the things that I'm involved in that I'm excited about is a project called Co-ops for Co-ops. Co-ops in general is one of the focuses of C's because it is a type of organization that better reflects democratic decision-making processes, right? A co-op, everyone has one vote. So we're going to launch basically like a directory online called Co-ops for Co-ops, where instead of like business-to-business services, that are cooperatives, basically. So a cooperative that offers like industrial manufacturing or something like that, or cooperatives that does transportation or a venue, things like that. Because Principle 6 of cooperatives is to collaborate with others, basically, other cooperatives. Right. That's it. Right. And it's really difficult sometimes finding out, oh, that's a cooperative, I had no idea, whatever it is. Or I myself...
sometimes it's just purely internal for them, right? And then I feel like very often... I mean, sometimes people do make it like a more outward-facing thing. But I can imagine how it's difficult finding people who are also function in the cooperative.
Yeah,
setting.
like I'm part of a Bar Milton Park. It's a solidarity cooperative on Abdi Park, and the number of times we're looking for professional services for like financial bookkeeping, or let's say HR advising or things like that. There's co-ops that provide that like across the board, but they're not going to show up at the top of your Google search or however you're trying to get at it, or word of mouth. So we're just trying to consolidate that all into like a nice, beautiful, easy to use directory.
Nice. Kind of like
That's
a
a
cooperative Yellow Pages.
Yeah, exactly. That's just like one small project that I'm a little bit keen on, but we're doing a lot more. But I'll think about those after the convergence.
Of course, yeah, because we're still right in the middle of it.
Right,
It's going on right next door.
Yeah.
The audience, listeners might hear some sounds from there. Well, thank you so much, Malcolm, for joining me. I know you're busy. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. It is such a Montreal weekend. Behind us on the corner, there's a protest. In the other room, there's a policy discussion about housing, because we are at still the housing justice convergence. And now I'm speaking to someone who's pretty directly involved, I would say, with housing justice. I'm talking to Quinn, a tenant organizer, member of SLAM, participant of this housing convergence. How are you doing, Quinn?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Thank you for asking. I'm doing good too. I'm excited to be here. Lots of interesting conversations going around. Every time I'm in the elevator, there's like a buzz. People are like excited. People are filled with ideas. Some people are a little tired. So many ideas, but it's a period of high energy, I feel. How are you liking the convergence so far?
I love it. It's so nice. I feel like there's lots of organizers here, and I feel like we're all on the verge of burnout always, and then we come together, and it's just like so invigorating.
Right.
I might sleep for a week after, but it's
nice.
That's
gonna be nice. Quinn, can you quickly tell us about, I guess, some of the tenant organizing you do? What does that entail?
What does it entail? I mean, a large part of tenant organizing is getting people to talk to each other. We live.
It's so simple.
It's really so simple. Yeah. I mean, we just live in a world where we've been so siloed apart from each other. That is so unnatural. If you actually think about it, that we literally run workshops on how to have a one-on-one with your neighbor, how to approach them, how to door knock and say hi, introduce yourself, and then just discuss how do you feel about the building. We run workshops on that, and if you think back to a different time, a different place, I'm sure that they would be so disappointed that we've lost those very basic skills of socialization within our society, Yeah.
Just the something I guess was kind of taken for granted before, just talking to the neighbors.
Yeah.
But it's clearly so important. I think we had Lena from Tenants Rights QC, and I asked her at the end. I was like, Lena, what do you think? What is something you would share with someone who wants to start pushing back against this housing crisis? And Lena said exactly what you're saying. Talk to your neighbors.
It's really and it's a theme that's going on.
Yeah.
You have lots of different people at this conference from various organizations that are really come back to there's one thing that you do when you leave today, make sure you know your neighbors, talk to them. Yeah. That's where it all starts.
Yeah, absolutely. Those conversations. I guess we're talking a bit about the conference here. It's something that people are saying. What were your expectations to coming today? I guess how do you feel about it so far?
I've been feeling really good. I mean, I think a lot of people come very entrenched in their perspective of how to move forward in this realm of housing. And I appreciate that there was such a variety of different people at play. It's nice to be in a room with a bunch of people talking about policy and financing, and then be able to be also, if we make landlords' jobs harder, we're going to increase the risk of investment for them, which will drive down the cost of buying back these properties into your community land trusts, or whatever models that we're creating, and it's nice to have those recognize that there's people are working at different things. It's based on their interest in what their world is, and to kind of link over to the different worlds that we're all working on.
Yeah, absolutely. You're on a panel yourself.
Yeah, I spoke alongside the very honorable Tracy and Leonard, who wrote the Abolish Rent book. It was the book launch on Friday. I was very honored to be next to them.
How's that conversation?
Oh, it was amazing. I mean, it's so refreshing they clearly do a lot of speaking. They also spent a very long time articulating everything in a book. So I have not read the whole book yet. I've read pieces of it, but they really cut to the chase and talk about what is actually on the table, like abolish rent. It's a pretty direct statement of a book title, you know.
Bold.
So it was really nice hearing what they had to say, what they brought to the table. And again, going back to like them talking about the rent strikes that they're doing in LA and the LA Tenants Union and how many wins they're getting, and then also like showing pictures of like the community events that are coming out of the tenants union, right? Like all the community in the back alley painting it and doing these games with strings with both children and elderly, and
Incredible.
like, you know, it's again coming back to like how housing, it's about land, it's about community, it's about people, and that's where it starts, people, you know? Yeah.
So this is, I imagine this is quite a huge opportunity for you as a tenant organizer to meet other tenant organizers from across Canada and the U.S.
Yeah. And it's been like both overwhelming and fun. There's like a million people that I'm like, I wish I had gotten the chance to like flag down, but then getting caught up in another conversation with someone else. So it's almost like too much at once.
Like a kid in a candy store.
Yeah, I know, exactly, you know. So it's really enough to just be in the same energy as everyone and hear inspiring voices and just like have ideas like even not spoken, but just like meld together in the energy of the air, you know?
Yeah. Pocket that.
Yeah, I know, right? It's just
Like
like
a
it feels
jar.
like it's everywhere.
I'm kind of curious. How do you feel you're gonna walk away from this convergence, from this event, back to tenant organizing? What do you think has shifted?
I think that it was really nice to like come in and feel the sense of like, when you get into like the weeds of organizing, it can start to feel like a bit of like I get like the edge, the creep of burnout that comes along with it. And just this reminder of like coming in, talking about the bigger picture, sharing with people, like people are doing this everywhere, you know, and feeling like reinvigorated. I think that that's like the biggest thing that I'll walk away from. And then I think also like this reinstilling of like people are doing this everywhere. And it is amounting to something, like we're getting somewhere. And I think that that's like really inspiring, you know. I feel reinvigorated with the work.
Right. Just as you're approaching burnout too.
Yeah.
Thank goodness you're reinvigorated.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there I guess the same question to you that I asked of Lena earlier, but what would you tell someone who was interested in getting and pushing back against the housing crisis?
I would say talk to your neighbor. It's like the most essential thing. Go start to have a relationship with your neighbors. Be able to share with your neighbor, like, oh, I haven't had this fixed in my apartment in forever. Anything along those lines. Yeah, I would say just talk to your neighbor. Start meeting your other neighbors. I think also a central thing in getting to know your neighbors is remembering that like you're in this together, and your landlord is the person with power over you guys, and together you have more power than that landlord. That's the dynamic. One-on-one, you don't have power.
Right.
All the tenants together against your landlord, the tenants have power.
No, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. I'm curious. Before I let you go, like in your tenant organizing, do you ever come across people who are a little, maybe, unwilling, or maybe they have an annoying neighbor they don't want to talk to? How do you overcome that barrier?
Yeah, that I would say is a very central barrier in. If you are in labor organizing as well, like this is also a common thing. You know, it's the people piece is always something that can hold the movement, not movement as a whole, but like the process forward. And it's really about us refining that ability to find conflict resolution, be able to sit at the same table with people that we might actually just like on a morality basis have differences in how we want to operate or see the world, and be able to work together and be willing to create interdependence with people that like we don't necessarily agree with all the time, or we don't get along with all the time. Like how how do we find like new ways of conflict resolution that doesn't have to resolve everything, it just has to be workable,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. I feel like I saw something recently about how just being annoyed at someone in the community is just like, it's fine. Doesn't have to become anything more than that. Doesn't have to be, like you're saying, completely resolved. That's just a part of being in community with people.
Yeah,
right?
sometimes like how one of my friends described it one time is that like cats, you put some of them in a room together and they'll immediately leave and go away from each other. If you lock them in a room together, it's not very good. They
Right.
won't get along.
Right.
But like if we have a big world and we can like move away from each other, we can just get along for the sake of what we need to get along for, but we don't have to. It's okay that we don't all perfectly fit with each other,
Right, of
you know?
course. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's great. That's great. You ever organize cats? Is that
No,
on
they're
yeah, like that's too hard. That's too hard.
yeah, no.
That's hilarious. Well, thank you very much for joining me, Quinn. This has been an enlightening conversation. I think there's a lot of stuff that you talked about that I feel are these kind of recurring themes at this convergence, right? I mean, even this, like we're talking about how people are sort of siloed off in their own existences, in their own apartments, closed off from their neighbors, or even like certain movements, organizations closed off from other organizations. But I guess a huge theme of this convergence is just of that convergence and breaking down those boundaries that separate us.
Yeah, exactly. We're stronger together.
I guess we'll end on that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.